Lord, you are the wind in my sails. You guide me as I steer and find direction. You give me the strength to keep on going. You watch over me as I navigate stormy seas. You are the harbor where I stop for rest. You are my encourager when I lose hope. You are the lighthouse that keeps my path safe. You are always with me. Thank you. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. The land acknowledgement. Again, can you just make sure that your mics are off? Thank you. The Creator gifted us with this land that we are blessed to share and care for together. The Calgary Catholic School District acknowledges that the land we gather on, Mokistisis, is the ancestral territory of the Siksika-P, the Siksika, the Kainai Piikani, and Amska Piikani. We acknowledge all the Treaty 7 signatories, including the Tusina people, as well as the Ihare Nakota Nations, Bearpaw, Chiniki, and Wesley. This land is also the home of the Métis Nation Region 3 and all others who call this place home. Well, welcome everybody. I'm glad you could make it. Just an overview of our Board of Trustee priorities, faith formation, student success, wellness, and Indigenous education. And this time we'll be focusing in on student success, providing student-centered learning and assessment practices, supporting the diversity of learners' needs for student success, and that's where this really hones in on, and encouraging staff growth to champion student needs, which we're all doing right now. And so I am going to hand it over to Tanya, and she is going to take it from here. Actually, this is mine. Sorry, you guys. So our learning objectives today is to understand that phonological and more importantly, when you narrow it down to phonemic awareness, is the foundation for reading skills. We have to remember that we have to go from sound to print and not the other way around, from print to sound. Kids first need to be able to hear the nuances in our language so that when we connect the letters, it'll make sense. And then we're going to bring some phonological skills into the classroom and some fun activities. All right, Tanya.
Thank you, Camille. All right, so this image may be familiar to some of you or many of you. And so when we're thinking about early reading development, it kind of falls under these umbrella skills. So we're going to take a closer look at two of the chunks before moving on. And Camille, if you can forward to the next slide, please. Okay, so our first chunk is the phonological awareness piece. And so these skills typically develop in the preschool years and are a good predictor of future reading and spelling abilities. And so children need to develop their phonological awareness skills before they can do those things in the classroom. And so when you're thinking about phonological awareness, I want you to think about those bigger chunks or parts of language. So when we're asking children to rhyme, blend small words to make compound words, break those words apart into syllables or their onset and rhyme, we're working at this bigger level. And so that's why it's kind of at the top of the umbrella as well. And so then that leads us into one of the smaller chunks, which is the phonemic awareness level. And this is where our presentation is going to focus on today. So really, phonemic awareness is the understanding that spoken words are made up of their individual sounds called phonemes, hence phonemic awareness. And so it is the smallest sound that we hear in a word. And so it does fall under the umbrella as a subcategory of phonological awareness. So rather than working at those bigger and larger units of spoken language, we're asking students to listen for the individual sounds or phonemes that they're hearing in words. So for example, if we're asking students to blend or segment words to their individual sounds, we're working at that level. An example may be if we give them 3 sounds, fish, and they're blending it to make the word fish. And something to keep in mind is that when we're working at this level, we are working with the spoken words. And so phonemic awareness is auditory and doesn't necessarily involve those written words. And I want you to keep in mind that you can work on these skills in the dark. And so what you see on this slide right here is the continuum of phonological awareness skill development. So it's important to support and scaffold students throughout this continuum, which allows them to essentially work their way up to the phonemic awareness level. And so it's kind of like sometimes it's represented by a ladder, or in this case, a staircase. And so when we're providing instruction at these levels, we really have to step back and work on the phonological level to make sure that everything is in place. And it's much easier to hear the bigger units of language versus the individual sounds and words. So for example, if you're asking children to segment pencil into 2 syllables, such as pencil, that's a much easier task than segmenting the word pen into its 3 individual parts, which would be pen. And so, like I mentioned earlier, so our session today is really going to focus on that, the higher level skills that are circled in blue. And so to get us ready for the rest of our session, I thought it would be fun if we played a little game. And so it's going to be a waterfall-based activity. So you will write your answers in the chat box, but you will not hit send until I say go. And so you will hear an audio recording in different languages. And so one thing to keep in mind is that it is from a translation service. So I can't comment on the accuracy, but I think it'll do for our activity today. All right. And so you will either hear 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 words in a sentence. Okay, we'll get ready for our first one here.
Okay, I'll count you in. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
英語を話せますか?
Should I play it
All
again?
right. Yeah, let's play it one more time.
英語を話せますか?
All right, put your answers in the chat box. So I see lots of 3s, 5, 2s, some 4s. And I'm just waiting for a few more to come in. And so that sentence was in Japanese, and it translates to, can you speak English? And this sentence actually has 4 words in it. Lots of answers still pouring in. All right, Camille, I think we can move on to the second sentence, please.
Okay, so here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Доброе утро.
And write your answers in the box.
I'll play it one more time.
Доброе утро.
So I'm seeing 2s and 3s. I'll wait for a few more to come in. And that sentence is from Russian, and it translates to good morning, and there were 2 words in that sentence. So lots of answers coming in. Right, Camille, I think we can move on to number 3.
Okay. So are we good?
Sorry, lots of answers are still coming in. Sorry about that, everyone.
That's okay.
Give it maybe 10 more seconds. Yeah, I think we're ready for number 3.
Okay, number 3 in 3, 2, 1.
Das ist gut.
Play it one more time.
Das ist gut.
All right, everybody, you can put your answers in the chat box. So lots of flooding happening. I see 3s and 2s. Oh, we're all coming in now. 3s and 2s. So that sentence is in German, and the translation is that's good, and there were 3 words in that sentence. We'll move on to our last one.
Okay, here it comes. 3, 2, 1.
Où sont les toilettes?
One more time.
One more time, please.
Oops, shoot, hold on. Here it goes. 3, 2, 1.
Où sont les toilettes?
All right, you can put your answers in the chat box. So I'm seeing lots of 3s and 4s coming in, and that sentence is borrowed from French, and it translates to "where is the bathroom?" And there are in fact 4 words in that sentence. So good listening, everyone. And so I wanted to highlight this activity. And so when we think about oral language or speaking, it truly is a fluent string of words, and children don't necessarily always hear the breaks or the boundaries in those words. And so you do have to keep in mind that when we're asking them to count the number of words that they're hearing, that they know what a word is, and that they understand the word chunks. And so, as you can see, sometimes our children will give us varied answers like we saw in the chat. And so, yeah, so I think my main takeaway is not to assume that children know how to do this, and sometimes we do need to take a step back. So I will pass it on to Camille.
Great, thanks, Tanya. Yeah, so this is just a great thing to do in your classroom. And often I tell kids that to hear the sounds, we need to slow down our mouths because our mouths talk so quick and it's hard to hear sounds. So even if you slow it down to say the sentence, I often would do it and say, okay, how many words to this sentence? And we'd say, we are going to the gym. And the kids counted on their hands, like, we are going to the gym. Say, okay, show your neighbor. So some kids will have it right and they'll have 6, but other kids will go like this, we are going to the gym. And they might put the gym like this, and then they have 7. And so then it's just a fun thing to say, okay, count them together and see what they come up with as to if they can find their mistake. And it's just lots of good chatter about, hey, that word had 2 syllables, but it's only 1 word. And so just lots of talking you can get into with kids just in talking about the language, even before they're asked to read. So the next, often you can bring puppets into your class, and who doesn't love puppets? Kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, all good. I think I find a lot of people will say, like, once they get to grade 2, grade 3, but they should know this from kindergarten. But we all know that there's kids in our class that they're not there yet. So it's just good to bring it into a playful way. Often I'll bring in a turtle puppet, and I tell them that the turtle talks slow and that they have to figure out what the puppet is going to say. To start it, I will start with compound words, and I'll say, okay, he's going to say 2 words, but they go together to say a word. And so the turtle will say sailboat, and the kids, this one's pretty easy. They'll say sailboat, yay, they got it. And the turtle nods his head. And then I might say, okay, I'm going to say a word, but I'm going to say it slower. And so now maybe I'll use sail, and I'll say ale, and use the onset and rhyme, and do it again, ale. And then the kids will say, oh, that's sail, yay. And then I say, okay, the turtle's really slowed down now, and he's going to say a word for you, but he's only going to say the sounds. And so maybe he's going to say, ah, and I tell the kids to give me thumbs up when they have it, just so the other kids can hear it a few more times, because some kids aren't used to this. And then say, at, at, and then all the hands moves up, hopefully, and we say, what did I say? And they say, Matt. And then we do it again with another one. The way I usually like to end it is I say, ooh, and the kids shout boo, and then the turtle gets scared and he goes away. They think that's quite funny. Lots of things you can do with it. Yeah, I think it's just really important to be really explicit and tell kids that we need to listen to our mouths to hear the sounds that we're making, and just puppets make it fun. This is a great activity to bring into your classroom, depending on whatever letter you're learning, and you can do this all the way to grade 6. Kids like it. It's the basis of Pig Latin. And so for snack, this is a good time that I would use in the classroom. And so if we were learning the letter M that day and that the sound we're going to make is kids pull out their snacks and I go over and I talk to the kids. I say, what do you have? And they're like, I have a banana. And I say, okay, let's try and say banana with an M sound at the beginning. And so with that sound at the beginning, sorry. And so then we come up with banana and they think it's funny and then they'll ask me to do the next one. And so, you know, they might have juice and then we say moose. And so, you know, you get lots of giggles and lots of laughing and kids are learning because they're enjoying themselves. And then all the other kids will start asking you. And then by the end of the year, if we're doing a good job, they're all doing it themselves. Which is fantastic. When they get there, then you know that they're ready to read, and they're probably reading already if they're starting to do that. Another thing that I do with the sound of the day. So let's say this time it's we're using the f sound. I'll tell the kids to. I'll say, okay, go line up at the door, and they're like, okay. I said, but now I'm going to say it in the language, and they're like, okay. So I say, fine, four, and they giggle and they go line up. And so as the year goes on, I'll say, okay, I'm going to use the letter sound language, whatever letter it is that day or whichever one we've come back to. And I'll say it, but I won't tell them ahead of time. And so then they try and figure it out and they giggle and it's funny. But I do have to tell you a funny story about this. I had a really smart little guy in my classroom and it was the F sound. Be careful with the F sound. And he said, can you say to us, put our shoes in the bucket? I'm like, okay. So I go foot for foos, fin fa, and then I went, uh-oh, bucket. And he had the biggest grin on his face, and I was just like, oh my goodness, I almost walked right into that one. So just be careful, but it is fun. This is a great video just for syllables, just breaking the words into their parts. Lots of times we're not even sure as teachers what a syllable it is. And when I learned this, I thought it was awesome, is that a syllable can be a word or it's part of a word, but it has to have a vowel. So just something to take with you. So when you're teaching kids about syllables, but just listen to this. It's a great activity way and to bring in some vocabulary that you might be teaching to your class. Oh, shoot, sorry. My thing is so touchy. Let me go back. There we go.
Stand up, stand up, stand up. Syllables to the line. Syllables to the line. Daytime. Daytime. Nighttime. Nighttime. Crater. Crater. Astronaut. Astronaut. Energy. Energy. Solar. Solar. Daytime. Daytime. Nighttime. Nighttime. Astronaut. Astronaut. Good job. Our hands are at our side. We're standing nice and tall. We're standing nice and tall. Our lips are very quiet. Our lips are very quiet. And we're ready for the hall. And we're ready for the hall. Good job.
And so just right before Sarah comes on, another good thing to do for the syllables, which Sarah reminded me last time, is if you put your hand right under your chin, you don't want to touch your chin, but just right below it, and you have the kids say the syllables to a word. So like pumpkin, your mouth automatically opens when you say a vowel sound. So you'll get pumpkin, you'll get 2 syllables because there's 2 vowels in that word. So it's a good way to help kids spell. And it's just a really good multisensory way to help kids hear the parts of words. All right, Sarah, you want to come on?
Yep, I'm here. Thank you.
Okie dokie.
Okay, so Tanya and Camille talked a lot about like fun activities you can do to help your child hear the different sounds in words or hear the syllables in a word, which is great. And they always say that phonemic awareness can be done in the dark. There's no letters involved. But of course, kids also have to know their letters in order to read and write. So I'm going to talk about a way that you can kind of bridge that gap between the phonics, between the letters, and phonemic awareness and the sounds. So to reiterate our aim when supporting our students' development of phonemic awareness, we want to help them develop their awareness of sounds and make that separate from looking at letters, and then also be able to recognize their letters. In our classrooms, we're doing such an awesome job of teaching and introducing the letters to students. So teaching that phonics piece. And while we do that, we can also be intentional in how we introduce all of the sounds, so the phonemes to our students. In the English alphabet, we have 26 letters, but this slide shows you that there's actually 44 speech sounds in English. So there's 20 vowel sounds and 24 consonant sounds. These charts are from, you'll see the link at the bottom there, from the Victoria State Government Department of Education and Training. It is an awesome resource for supporting phonological and phonemic awareness. I talk about it again on the final slide, just where we have our list of resources, but they talk, if you go to the link, they have lots of videos that are really similar to the one that Camille just showed, showing classroom activities at every level of phonological and phonemic awareness. So back to the slide of all the different sounds, we want our students to be aware of all of the sounds separate from their letters. And once they really understand all of the sounds that exist in our language, then we can start tying them into the letters. And you'll notice that although there's 44 sounds on these charts, there's multiple spellings. So only the most common ones are provided in this chart. For example, I wouldn't be able to fit in all of the spellings of E onto one slide. E-A, E-E, I, there's tons. So next slide, please. Let's talk about bridging that gap now. So we've done lots of activities, playing with the sounds. They're hearing lots of sounds. Let's tie them into the phonics piece now. As we introduce the letters, we often say, for example, this is my little card, and I'm not sure if it looks like a D to you, but it's a B to me. I can't tell with the mirror. This is the letter B, and I would typically say, this is the letter B, it says ba. But we can bring more awareness to the phoneme by talking about how the sound is made. So this is the letter B, and when I see this letter, I make it by bringing my lips together. I turn my voice on and I puff out my air to make my sound. Ba, ba. You can also have your students use actual physical gesture, which adds another element to that multisensory approach of improving phonemic awareness. For the B sound, it makes sense for me to use this gesture, but some people get really hung up on exactly what gesture should I use or exactly what description should I use to describe each sound. And as long as you're consistent, you're good. But I'll talk about some reasoning behind why I do certain gestures and why I group some sounds together. The multisensory approach includes using the visual cue. So once we introduce phonics, there's a visual cue, there's the actual letter. We want to talk about how we physically make the sound, so the oral kinesthetic cue, and also the gestural cue, so like hand popping for the B. All of these will help solidify in the student's memory what the letter is and connect it to the sound so they can use it to spell and read words. Fun activities that you can do as well as you're talking about how you make each sound is you can talk about how the sounds are similar and different to other sounds. So back to our like B example. B is a lot like our P sound, but when I say the P sound, my voice is off. And you could have your students put their hands on their necks and make both sounds to bring awareness of, oh, hey, they're really similar. My lips are doing the same thing, my tongue's doing the same thing, but now my voice box is vibrating. Or you can compare it to different types of sounds. So my B is a lot like my sound because my lips come together for both. But instead of bursting my lips open when I make the B sound, I keep them together and the air comes out my nose instead of my mouth. So I might put my hand on my nose for all my nasal sounds. On the left side of the screen, we have some flashcards there that can help you with descriptions. So I kind of imagine it the same way that so many of you do a letter of the day or a letter of the week. You can also talk about the sound that goes with it and take some time to explicitly describe how you make that sound. I have a copy of the little flashcards here. We can put these up on EPD as well. Yeah, I just saw someone ask about it. So I'm not sure if Camille, if you made these or if you found these, but they're great. As you teach the letters to your students, they have these little cues in the bottom right corner. You can see it better on the slide. I don't know why I'm trying to show you here, where it reminds you, okay, this is a puffing air sound because I see this little bit of wind blowing out and there's a stop sign there. So I know it's a stop sound. It's not like the air is going to keep going. And then, so that's like kind of describing how you make the sounds with these little cues. But we also want to group the sounds. So on the right side of the screen, there's one way that you can group the sounds. So as you're teaching them, the kiddos have something to latch on their previous knowledge to the new ones. We want to be mindful of the wording that we use to teach phonemes. So some people prefer to use kind of what I have up on these slides. It's a more descriptive, age-appropriate term, like calling B and P lip poppers, because that's what your lips are kind of doing. But you can also call them the technical terms, which you'll see. I think on my next slide I have the technical terms. Some people call the P and B stop sounds or plosive sounds because the air stops as soon as you make it, compared to the S sound or the Z sound where the air keeps flowing. Technical term, fricatives, more age appropriate, like here, they're called skinny air. Z. Either way, up to you. Both are good options to group them. Just be mindful when choosing how you want to describe the sounds, because it is important to group them. This can be really helpful. Grouping can be really helpful for students with working memory challenges as well, because then they're able to bring new knowledge of a new sound and loop it into something they already know and help them get to that sound a little bit quicker. Next slide, please, Camille. One way that you may have seen before to group sounds is in like a wall chart. So the vowel, sometimes called vowel valleys, or just vowel sound wall vowels, is a great way of grouping the vowel sounds by the way that they're made. So for those of you who haven't seen them before, they're grouped based on how open your mouth is and how forward or back your lips are. So if we start on the left side of the vowel valley, right at the top left, it's the E sound. So my lips are pulled back and my mouth is quite closed. E. And as you go down into the valley, my mouth opens wider and wider and wider. Yeah. And you end up with the ah sound. And then as we go up to the right-hand side of the vowel valley, my lips go further and further forward. So I start at an ah at the bottom and I move all the way up to ah, ooh, and end up at the ooh sound. This is a great representation for kiddos to look at, remember where their placement of their vowel sound has to be, and then they can tie it into the letters or the graphemes associated with it. But you can also do it with consonants. So next slide, please, Camille. So here's an example, well, two examples of a consonant wall. You can find templates for these online, and on my final slide today, I have just like a kind of a snippet of my Google search. So you can find some of these pre-made where they have like the labels there, or you can build your own. So I think it'd be super fun, maybe time consuming, but really fun and engaging way to teach each sound to your students by building your own consonant wall. So either at the beginning of the year, before your students get there, or you can build it as you go, the same way that you build up your letters of the week so you have a full alphabet. You can see the one on the left is kind of ongoing. It doesn't have all of the sounds yet. And the slide on the right, or the picture on the right, is a completed sound wall. Typically called sound walls, but I've also seen them called consonant wall charts. It's also a different way of thinking about how you organize your letters in your classroom, because typically we have our letters organized on a bulletin board in the letters of the alphabet, so A to Z. But instead of putting it this way, and if you have the space, which I know most of us don't, but if you could, you can reorganize it by their sounds. So you're going to group the stop sounds together, the p, but, d, k, k, in one little area. And I've seen people use electrical tape to kind of section each one off. And you can build it as you go. So I love the idea of having your little visual card and having some Velcro on the back so that you can add as you go, and students will see, okay, we're going to build to an entire thing eventually, but right now we only have a couple. And that way you can also take them down to use them during activities, which I'll talk about here in a second. So next slide, please. Once you have your wall chart built up, you have access to all these different pictures of the sounds. I love the idea of you taking pictures of your students as you learn the sounds. So say you start with one student, they get to do the ah sound, that one goes up. The next week you get to choose another student as you learn the buh sound, take a picture of their mouth, and then they get to go put it up. There's a great way to use them when you're working on blending. So kind of to backtrack for a second, there's blending using letters, so using phonics, or you can work on blending with phonemic awareness. The moment that there's a letter involved in the activity, now you're not really doing phonemic awareness. So if you wanted to practice blending with the letters, ba, duh, what word is that? Bed. You are blending, but you're using the letters. We could do it without the letters, just by using phonemic awareness. And I like to still use a visual cue. So whenever I'm working on blending with a student, I try and tap my arm. And I'll start here with the first sound. B, eh, duh. Let's put them together and see what word it is. Bed. So that's the second way you can do it, just phonemic awareness. But that can still be really tricky for some kiddos, especially during COVID right now when we're wearing masks. They're having a really hard time discriminating sounds and manipulating those sounds. So I like to use my visual cards to give them a little bit of a sub-step with their phonemic awareness. So instead of tapping my arm, or maybe I'll even glue it onto my arm for the activity, I'll use my visual cards and I'll say, okay, let's blend these sounds. B, eh, duh. Try it again. Bed. What word is that? Bed. So just different ways you can use these cards in addition to just bringing just basic awareness of what each sound is and how it's made. Next slide, please. So like I said, there's a couple of examples that we have here in our slide of like flashcards and examples of vowel consonant walls. And yeah, so they're here in the slide, and we're going to have this recorded so that you can go find it again on EPD and go back over any of the slides you may have missed. But there's also 3 other links that I wanted to include. So for videos and activities at each stage of developing phonemic and phonological awareness, the Literacy Teaching Toolkit by the Victoria State Government that I've referenced before is awesome. Highly recommend you check that out. And then within our district, we have an entire section on EPD dedicated to phonological awareness that's organized similarly to the Victoria State Government one, where you should be able to click on it and say, hey, I know my kids are having a hard time with segmenting sounds and words. Let's scroll down and see if I can find an activity for me to use to help support my students in this area. And if you are newer to phonemic awareness and you want to get an idea of kind of where your class is or where certain students who are having a difficult time reading are, you can use this tool called the PAST screening tool. I have in brackets, it's from a book called Equipped for Reading Success, and we have it as the part of the IMC library. One of my schools might have it currently, but it's a resource that exists. And at the end is this screening test. It is a test and there are norms, but I normally recommend just using it as a basic screening tool. So this test is divided by levels of phonemic awareness. So you start at, say, syllable level and you work all the way up until segmenting and deleting sounds and words. And you can just sit down with a student or a group of students and quickly do a couple from each level just to get an idea of where they're at. So say bookcase. Now say bookcase, but don't say book. Case. If that's really hard for them, I would just stick at that level. In brackets, it says what expected grade level that's at. Take that with a grain of salt. It's not based on standardized norms. It's more anecdotal, but anecdotally speaking, I do find it quite helpful. Just referencing, okay, I'm here with a grade 2 and they're having a really difficult time segmenting sounds. I expect them to be able to do that at this level. Let's try just adding a couple of these in to my day-to-day sessions or day-to-day classroom activities. So those are online as a quick screener. And Camille, if you could just go back to the presentation for a second. In our last session, we had a couple of really good questions about the consonant walls. One was, if you're working in a bilingual classroom, how does that look? And we love the idea of building it for both and seeing the similarities between languages, because there won't be all the same sounds in one language as the other. So you can compare and contrast or talk about how certain letters make different sounds in both languages. I think it's a really great opportunity if you have that wall there to talk about the differences in languages. Actually, it might not be there, Camille. Did I add it in there? The next slide? I might not have been quick enough. Oh yeah, I did. So I literally just took a screenshot of my screen. there are sound wall templates that you can buy online, but I didn't want to recommend anything you have to buy. If you need support, or needs some ideas, I do recommend going to somewhere like Teachers Pay Teachers and getting an idea. But it's really as simple as maybe taking these flashcards that we'll share on EPD and just organizing these letters or the sounds by the manner and place of articulation. So having the stops together, having the fricatives together, and having all the nasal sounds in one area. Get creative with it. I'd love to see some examples if you do it. And that is it for me. We're going to stay on here and answer any questions anyone might have.
Great. Since we have a little bit of time, I'm just going to pull up EPD and just show you where to go in EPD, because it some people, they have a hard time finding it, but oh wait, EPD is not going to work. But as soon as I show you, you'll see it and you'll go, oh, so hold on. So are you seeing what I'm pulling up? You're seeing?
Yep.
Okay, so you go under ELA. And it says it's new, 5 pillars of reading instruction. You go there and just scroll down, and there's the pillars. So phonological and phonemic awareness is there. And you just scroll away, and lots of stuff there. Christine Knight has put lots of stuff up there. So you just scroll down, and tons of stuff to help you make it.
You can see on the right there, for example, that video, the rhyme video, that's one of the videos from the Victoria State Government. They're awesome. They show real, both whole class activities and small group activities.
Yeah, and then and she's organized it into each step. So it's all there. Really good stuff.
And you can spend days going through all of the resources. There really is a lot of good stuff there.
Yep, I can do
that
the
might be
EPD process again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, hold on.
Missing the 5 pillars of reading.
Let's go back to EPD home. Ah, great. Hold on. That's where I wanted to go. Okay, so you go to EPD and going down. Where's my ELA?
Camille, maybe even back stepping to how do we get to EPD? I did put the link in the chat box, but just to make sure we're all on the same page.
So if you go to CSSD and you go to the useful links and then click on EPD, and then the Never Stop Learning homepage should come up, and then you're going to go to ELA, so Language Arts Elementary. And then just in the 5 panels here, you're going to see new 5 pillars of reading instruction. You click on that, and then just scroll down. And then you're going to see that Christina's organized it into concepts of prints, phonological and phonemic awareness, phonics instruction, fluency, all the pillars that you need there. And so if you want the phonological and phonemic, you click on that. And then it's going to take you right there, and there's lots of different activities you can do. Yeah, I think an important part of the phonological and phonemic awareness is it is stages, but you don't have to stay in one stage. You can expose kids to lots of different, and the more exposure they get, the better they get at it. So there's so much information here. If you really want to learn, just start clicking on things, and you'll learn. Any other questions?
Great job with this website. Ooh, flashcards. Camille, did you make these?
Yeah, I did. They would probably, if they're up. I'm not sure if they're up yet because we've been playing. I've been helping Christine with the phonics area, but I will make sure that they are up. They should be in the phonics section, because once we connect letters to sound, it's now phonics. It's not phonemic awareness anymore. So it's fine.
Bridging the gap.
Yeah, and once you've bridged the gap, actually the research is showing that they just build on each other. So that's good.
Good job, Camille. They're awesome. Yeah, And I remembered to record the session, so it's going
Yay!
on. Can't believe I did.
So many wins.
And just in true kindergarten fashion, I would just like to say that this session went better than the first one.
Yeah, we'll put this one up.
Yep. Always put your kid in the second class. Good. Oh, there we had a lot of people. I'm never on the chat part because my computer.
Thank you for monitoring it, whoever was monitoring it.
Yes, good job.
I really, really want to do a consonant wall chart in a kindergarten class I'm in. So if any of my kindergarten teachers are here, let me in there.
I'll join you next year.
I'll bring in my electrical tape. I think I saw a couple of them, so I'm going to chat with you guys
So
this
much
week.
fun.
Perfect.
Oh, Melissa.
See you soon,
Nice.
Melissa. It's going to be a hoot.
Oh.
Beautiful.
Oh. Yes, Brenda, it's true.
Oh, yeah. Come on, come on. I'd love to actually get the template. Maybe I should create my own Teachers Pay Teachers, but I'll give everyone in the district a free access.
There you go.
I mean, Sarah, we can make this happen.
I
Maybe
know.
during the summer.
Right.
But we can make it happen.
Still, I'll see you soon. We'll do it. Yeah, I'm gonna try and make all the flashcards and like the little pretty signs for the stops and plosives and whatever. I actually hadn't seen like the lip poppers, like that type of chart until I was doing this research. I was like, oh, I should probably call it that as opposed to my fricatives with my 4-year-olds.
And I think too, right? And children do respond to different types of cues. So there's no right or wrong. It's just figuring out what works best for you. How are you comfortable explaining it and just introducing it and just practice, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Practice doesn't make perfect, it makes permanent.
That's right. Perfect practice.
All right, I'm gonna stop the recording here now.
Okay.
I think that I did that.
I don't know.
I did. Stop recording.
Leaving.